Perhaps the concept that I utilize the most in real life conversations and with myself, frankly, I'm trying to think through how I'm approaching something or thinking about something, is the next level why concept. So the idea that you're trying to understand a topic or a belief somebody has or an action they took, and you would ask them, why'd you do that? And they'll give you some first level kind of simple answer at first, typically, or something that's a little bit more obvious. But then you push past that and say, but why, right? But go a level deeper, explain why. And we give an example that I think is relevant and interesting to think of it through this lens. There's obviously a big movement and push today in society from a certain group to try and be more progressive, to try and think about, questioning and changing aspects of historical American society, capitalism, some of the racist or racism that exists, institutionalized racism, things like that, just civil rights in general, trying to change those. To some extent, you could say freedom of speech, if you will, but the idea that, hey, some speech should be censored, there is dangerous speech, and we should be careful of that. Things that seem very counter to what many conservative Americans would believe are like core American values, and you could list off other things as well. And I think if you were to talk to the average, if there is one, white conservative American, and you said, why do you think that movement exists? Why do you think that's there? Why do you think they're trying to do what they're trying to do? And they would likely, and I've had conversations with people, so obviously I'm generalizing, but you may get some response that's something like, well, they don't have any love for America. They don't believe in it. They think it's a bad place, and they some ways want to destroy it and rebuild it in a different way, right? And the simple why they're being, they hate America. Okay, that might be true, right? Let's even assume that is true. But why, right? Next level why. Why do you think they hate America? Do you think it was something that just is inherently born in them? It's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that it's just an inherent trait or belief that they have. But I think the beauty of the next level why is it forces you to really question that. It starts to tease out assumptions. It starts to uncover inconvenient truths that might exist. It starts to force you down a logical path where you have to explain it in some ways, right? It's not enough to just say, I don't know, or that's just the way it is. The next level why, paired with the logic principle that I've talked about in other videos, that we are always running a calculation, every thought, view, action we take. And if you're willing to be super reflective and get in the mud, you can understand that calculation. That paired with the next level why almost forces you to address it. It forces you to face it in some ways. So you go back to this example of you're talking to the white conservative who's super concerned about socialists, all those things. All right, they hate the country. They want to see it fundamentally changed. Okay, why? Why do you think that is? And I think, as an example here, and it's not to say this is definitely it, but I would argue it's probably part of it. It forces you to face the idea of perhaps it's driven somewhat by what you've done, you as a collective group. And I understand how that might be sensitive, and I think that topic comes up, and you hear a lot about white privilege and other things, and people are very standoffish to that. And I get it, right? It's taken on a lot of derivations, but there's probably some component of that. And I've talked in other videos about the accountability you have to take, and I've said it from the other side. If you're Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Andrew Cuomo or other prominent Democrats, and you look at Trump and say, he's the worst, he's a nightmare for this country, I can't believe people are voting for him, like, you have to stop. You have to take some accountability and say, hey, they're picking him over you. You're not perfect either. There's something you're doing that's leading to them to say, he's the guy I want. Same concept here, right? These people who are trying to make a change and fundamentally change the way America is, logically, you would have to assume some part of that is driven by the way that America has been. It has made them feel like something has to change. They've been on the wrong end of a power dynamic. They've been wronged in some way. They've been oppressed in some way. Logic would dictate that they wouldn't just make that up. Some might, right? Some are just anarchists. Some just want to see chaos and destruction. Some have agendas. But for that many people to get behind it, you would have to believe there's something to it. Something pushed them to that. Now, does that mean they have it all right? Does that mean they have all the answers? No. But that next level why and having that little bit of accountability for yourself might help you to handle that situation a little bit better. Might help you to be a little bit more objective, might help you to be a little bit more empathetic and understand. And most importantly, assuming the objective is to make the country a better place, and we want a better place for all of our citizens, right? It may actually help get to that objective. It may help allow you to identify the paths and the approaches that have to be taken to find the middle ground in some way. If you can acknowledge there's some logic or some rationale maybe as to why they feel this way about America and why they want the changes they want, right? That openness to that might allow them to open up the idea of understanding why you think it shouldn't change and figuring out to feel like, hey, we're both humans here. We understand the gripes. We understand the problems. And I understand that there's some things that have happened that may have led to this. So let's work to try and fix it. Rather than just that first level why, which says, well, they hate the country and they're evil. Well, but why? Why did they get to that point? I think it helps you get to a much better outcome.